Okay, I'm really excited. I've been looking forward to this, Ranya, for ages. It seems everyone is talking about environmental sustainability. I mean, whether it's electric vehicles, recycling, everyone's conscious, aren't they, nowadays, about having to do something to stave off the tide of, I suppose, climate change and things that are going on in the world. It seems like you must have been ahead of this curve way before any of us. How did you get involved in this?
Oh, Mark. First of all, it's lovely being here. And, what happened with me was I actually fell into sustainability quite naturally because I was working for an architectural firm in Dubai, an American architectural firm. Massive in Pittsburgh, and had a huge presence in Dubai called Burt Hill. And they basically just decided, and this was in 2007, almost 20 years ago. God, it kills me to think how old I am. So they just basically told us that all the senior architects and all the senior team members would have to get a sustainability credential. We'd have to get a sustainability qualification. And then that was just it.
How long ago was that, did you say?
Do you have to remind me? It's painful.
Well, I just think you're being way ahead of the game. That's really what I was getting at.
Yeah, it was in 2007.
Okay, yeah, it was well ahead then.
Yeah, so it was pretty interesting because I actually went on to become a faculty member with the United States Green Building Council, and one of the things that I do and did a lot of in during my career is to teach sustainability and educate young people, young professionals on the principles of green building design. And this was on a rating system called LEED, which is the American the American cousin to BREEAM. So it's essentially like a scorecard for how green a building is. So, for example, we could sit here and say, this building is really green because it's got solar panels. How green is that?
Yeah.
And then we could say, well, another building is also very green because it's, they do gray water treatment on site and they have water efficient fixtures. That's very green.
Yeah.
So green building rating systems like LEED and BREEAM are kind of ways to score a building.
I suppose you need that, don't you? Because anyone can claim anything that they're green just by putting any one of those things in. But what makes you green? What makes your building environmentally friendly, I suppose?
Yeah, absolutely. So these systems tend to put in place a process by which, anyone, any third party can, kind of just look at that scorecard and say, oh, this is how green this building is. And they rate sustainability in different areas. A lot of people think sustainability in the built environment is about energy efficiency. It's just about net zero. And whereas this is obviously very important and a critical component of sustainability, there are a lot of other aspects to sustainability, like the quality of, like air quality, like the overall quality of the indoor environment, like how we manage our resources, how we manage waste, how we generate waste now, how much waste we generate.
Well, I've heard that. I've heard people talking about the circular economy, about how that's so important to, before you even start buying, to think about that and about sustainability. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, circular economy is certainly a very, very large part of it, and it is a key component, and it's really good for the planet, but it's also very, very good for the budget. Well, that's
important
good stuff.
Important stuff. Yeah. Not that the other one isn't important. The planet's important, obviously, but We often get knocked back by the budget about thinking we want to do something about this, but we don't have the money to be able to do it, or it seems expensive. But you're saying it's not. It's an investment, I suppose.
It is, and it's an investment, and different strategies give different returns on investments for different people and different businesses and different buildings. Okay. So the most important thing is to focus on the strategies that are right for you.
Okay. Like anything, it's individual to your business, I suppose.
Yes.
How you approach it. So no, just before we I want to get into that because I think that's really interesting. Some people think that there's a one size fits all but and that isn't the case, clearly. So but just before we get to that, you are from a company called Regeneros. So just tell me a little bit about that because they're relatively new on the scene, well, in this scene anyway. So tell me a bit about Regeneros.
Well, I founded Regeneros with OMG, looking back at it, like the worst timing ever, just before the pandemic. I kid
that's
you
never
not.
a good time to start any business, is it?
No. Well, I mean, not unless you're, I don't know, doing something specifically related to helping people with the pandemic. You know that.
Yeah.
And
unless you're running Zoom. Zoom calls did well during the pandemic, I think.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So how did that come about then? What was your starter for 10 with Regeneros?
Well, I had just moved to North Lincolnshire to join my husband, Paul, and I kind of had a think, and I just thought, you know what? I don't want anyone to give me a job or ask anyone for a job or apply for a job. I want to give myself a job doing something that I believe in and that I'm passionate about and that I enjoy.
Yeah, the secret formula for all good entrepreneurs. Find something you're passionate about and do it. Yeah. Excellent. And what happened next?
Well, I went ahead. I started Regeneros. The COVID pandemic hit shortly afterwards. But I think the interesting part of it is there was the initial shock, of the COVID shock that so many businesses took. And also because Regeneros was so young, I wasn't in the position that some other businesses were, where, for example, they could get, assistance from the government for, to help with the impact of the pandemic. So I really kind of had to go and think to myself, oh, my goodness, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And what happened was, the first thing I did was I actually did a course that went on the United States Green Building Council's official education platform. That's where it ended up. And it was a course on COVID.
That you wrote?
Yes.
Excellent.
And it was a course that related to, and this kind of goes back to, when we were talking about sustainability and how do we measure sustainability and what does sustainability cover. The course actually focused on the impact of the built environment on human health and well-being.
Okay.
So if, you remember how during the pandemic, how difficult everything was. I hope that, your family was safe and well. And
but it was challenging.
Healthy.
It was challenging, that's for sure.
Yeah. So there was an impact on people's health, people's well-being, human life, an impact on livelihoods, the economy, businesses. Many businesses had to close.
Scary time.
Yeah. So actually, if we think, if we look at it from an engineering perspective, there were many things that we could have done in our buildings that would have helped limit the spread of the virus.
Oh, okay. Like what?
Well, one technology that's become, very popular and very prevalent now is the use of something called ultraviolet germicidal irradiation.
Okay, you'll have to explain that.
Well, it's basically a kind of it's a technology that's been used a lot. People think it's new. It's not. Historically, it's been used a lot, but it was mostly used in the healthcare industry.
Okay.
So, in all likelihood, if you know, I don't want to say if you will, people going to an operating theater, for example, it would be protected in this way.
Oh, okay.
But it was not a technology that was, very commonly used in most commercial buildings. Things like, just for example, the quality of the filters that we use. Most people tend to use very, very poor quality filters.
On their lights, you're talking about?
Filters.
Oh, air filters.
Yes, air filters.
Sorry. Okay, I'm with you now.
Yeah,
okay.
air filters. So, that's another example. But using high quality filtration, like we'd say normally for LEED, BREEAM, we'd recommend a rating called MERV 13 or higher, right?
Okay.
Again, in some industries like healthcare, that was used a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in most commercial buildings, it wasn't. Things like, for example, using technologies which open doors automatically, for example.
Yep.
Automatic access. These were really, really important because what they meant was the way that the virus spread. Do you remember how we had to wash our hands all the time? And
saying happy birthday, I seem to remember, for twice.
Yes.
In order to get the timing right. Yeah, I remember all that.
Yeah. Like this hand sanitizer everywhere. Yeah. So the reason the hand sanitizer was everywhere was essentially because one of the main means that the virus spread was through what we call constantly used surfaces.
Okay, like door handles and the like, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So technologies which, for example, open doors automatically, where, you can choose which, on larger buildings where you can choose which level you go to on a lift via voice activation or automatically. All these technologies help limit the spread of the virus. And we really didn't think of any of those things. That we didn't actually design the built environment with a pandemic in mind. No.
Well, I don't suppose you would do. But interestingly, from what you're saying, I look around a number of buildings, ours included, and the hand sanitizers are everywhere. They're still there. And everywhere you go, you see people with bottles of hand sanitizers. So there's something that's entered into our way of doing things in buildings and the like that the pandemic has caused. The impact is lasting to make it safer, I suppose.
Yes, you're right. That's good. It's like lessons learned, Mark, I think. Yeah.
Well, if we didn't learn anything from that, then it'd be a bad state of affairs, wouldn't it? It was such an upheaval. Yeah. All right. Okay. So just coming back away from the pandemic, that's what I'm really interested in, getting back into this idea about sustainability, because again, as we said at the start, there's a lot of people talking about a lot of things to do with sustainability. There's this thing called greenwashing that I hear a lot about. Yeah. People saying they're doing. I want to talk a little bit about that. Yes. And then there's other things that people you might hear down the pub, for example, or someone saying, some friend of yours saying, "Oh, well, I've heard if you do this, it's good for the environment." All of this is floating around in conversations that I have. And that's why I was keen to talk to you, because we need some actual facts here. We need some real facts so that we can know what it is we're talking about. So let's start with greenwashing. What is that? What is greenwashing?
That is such a cool question. Yeah. So basically, the idea of greenwashing is like overstating or exaggerating how green you are.
Okay.
So it's for example, I'm trying to think of.
Well, yeah, well, we wouldn't want to name any firms, obviously, but
no, of course not. I'm thinking of just like a thing. Another sort of side of greenwashing is sometimes firms look to go green or look to show how green they are, or want to appear green for a whole host of different reasons. And they may not in all cases be actually practicing what they preach. Sort of to kind of put it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
I'll give you a very broad example. It's not, I would not say it is, of course, many firms and many people at that in that industry and at that time did believe very strongly in sustainability and did practice what they preach. But just in general, in 2008, there was a massive economic downturn. And a lot of, I'm a professional engineer, Mark. A lot of my colleagues, engineers, architects, they lost their jobs because construction just came to a grinding halt. And a lot of the thinking at the time was that perhaps some of the practices undertaken by some parts of the financial industry caused the economic downturn.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the thinking,
I remember those headlines.
Yes. So what a lot of banks did, and what I noted as a member of a design firm who worked a lot with green buildings, is there was a massive surge in the number of banks looking to implement CSR frameworks, looking to get green building certifications, looking to reduce their carbon footprint. And of course, they publicized all this very, very heavily. Yeah. So whereas a lot of them, and I'm sure, the massive majority of them were, did it in good faith and practiced what they preached, there was another side of it, which was they wanted to send a message to the world. They wanted to say, look, we're not the bad guys here. We're good guys. We're so good. Yeah. We love the environment. How good are we?
That is, I suppose it's when doing right by the environment and making sure you're not causing damage to your community and to the planet. There's a line between when you're actually doing something or when you're just seeing it as a marketing ploy or a marketing opportunity. Everyone wants us to be green, so we're going to say we're green. It doesn't matter what we do, we'll just say we're green. So I can imagine that must happen in businesses large and small, I imagine, over the years. And do you, is that where things like BREEAM come in, where you can actually measure what's being done rather than measuring what's said?
Yes, absolutely. Rating systems like BREEAM, like CLEED, they try. The main thing there is to make sustainability very, very transparent and extremely objective. Any two people looking at this building should come to the exact same conclusion.
Okay. Yeah. That's always a good rating system, isn't it? If two people come at it separately but come out with the same answer, yeah, for sure. So, and now a lot of that has been leveled or actioned by large corporations, large businesses. And let's face it, they have more opportunity to do it. They've got more resources to look at their large footprint and make changes to the way that they operate in order to score high on BREEAM or be able to tell the world that we are a greener company. But when it comes down to businesses like mine and yours, I suppose, then so you could be forgiven for thinking, well, what difference can I make? I mean, if the rest of the world can do it, I'm just a small business and I'm not sure I can make any difference to anything. What would you say to people like that who thought that?
Well, think of it like voting.
Like
voting.
Right.
Voting. Every vote counts.
Okay.
Every ton of carbon avoided counts. I think that if we, and I'm just looking at it from a very actually kind of high level, sort of top down way, I don't see any of the national plans for decarbonization reaching their targets anywhere without everybody doing their part. I'll say another thing about climate change. We tend to think of climate change as an environmental issue, as purely an environmental issue. It's an environmental issue. I'd like to put another perspective out there, and this is from this is from a course I'm preparing now for the United States Green Building Council. And do you know how the United Nations described climate change?
No.
The UN described it as the single biggest health threat facing humanity.
Okay.
Health threat.
That's interesting. That's a different angle, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, look at the places that are at risk of flooding. The massive, wildfires just recently seen in California. Look at, even again, looking at it just from an economic, from the money perspective. Look at changes we've had to make. There's been a massive uptake on the use of cooling, air conditioning in the UK. 15 years ago, most people, if you talk to them about having...
They only wanted heaters a few years ago, not air conditioning, Yeah,
but it's suddenly... boom, 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 couple of years in a row. We've had some of the hottest years on record in the recent past.
I mean, that's so true. You can see it, can't you? If you just look back, just a short time ago, back into the 1970s, for example, there were snowstorms here and winters would be full of, a few feet thick snow falling on the ground.
Yeah.
You rarely get that anymore. You rarely see anything. The seasons seem to be blending together. We can see the impact. We know this, don't we? Instinctively, we know it's happening. But it still comes down to the point of, well, we know it. And humans are not very good at responding to slow things, are they?
No,
it's like
we're not.
boiling a frog. We just, it's all just happens slowly but surely. So how can we, I recognise we have a responsibility from a business point of view. So how can we as small business owners, I mean, just in this part of the world, there's 9,000 in northern Lincolnshire. What can they all do realistically? What can they do? And I love that vote analogy, by the way. Everyone counts.
Yes.
So what should they be doing? What could you say to them that would say this is the bit that you should really think about doing?
Well, I would say, done right, fighting the climate change will not only help the environment, it will help your business. It will help your business economically. It will help attract customers to your business. And I would say, first thing, make sure you are aware of the help that you can get, because there is a lot of help available for you. There's help from the government. There's funding from the government. There are, a number of different sources that are there just to help small businesses. And I would say that. And, the second thing I'd say is get started.
Well, everything, you can think about it for ages until you actually do something.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting about the funding that's available, because I think that's a real boost. And it also shows the intent that the government have to support how important it is that small businesses actually do something.
Yes, absolutely. And you're absolutely 100% right, Mark. A large part of the reason that the support is there is because the government realizes how important it is for all businesses of all sizes to decarbonize for the national plan to happen.
Yeah. And you can see, I can imagine the footprint that they collectively must have, small businesses across the country, is quite enormous when you consider it. And I also, I'd value your opinion on this. It's really noticeable to me that you mentioned about customers and about your business success. And it's been noticeable to me as a property landlord that people are starting to ask questions about our green credentials before they decide to lease a property off us a lot more. Companies who are trying to win contracts from, even third-tier contracts from government, are being asked about, what are you doing to protect the environment? What are your green credentials? Is that an up-and-coming thing? 'Cause it seems to be.
Yes, it is, and I would agree with that. And the other thing is, if you're firm bidding government contracts, a lot of the times there will be a lot of questions that relate to your sustainability credentials and your decarbonization efforts.
Yeah, and that's the real telling bit. If it means you can or can't win business based on what your green credentials actually are, not your greenwashing, but your actual activity in sustainability is, then that's just business sense, isn't it? You have to get ahead of that kind of thing rather than just wait for somebody else to tell you what to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, we were saying it's good for the wallet as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what we're all driven by, aren't we? We need our businesses to be sustainable financially as well as environmentally. So doing something that makes business sense as well as anything else is great. And I know that from a small business point of view, some of the inquiries that we get are really, really about how if we're going to do business with you, we want to know that you are a good partner to have. And by a good partner, we want to know that you're not damaging the planet when we're working hard not to have an impact. And that's really important nowadays, I think. So there's another question I've been meaning to ask you. I hear a lot about, well, people saying you should. There's a lot of finger wagging and you should do this and you should do that. And I don't, and there's a lot of it. And
we don't like that.
People say, well, you should put solar panels up, mainly people who supply solar panels. And then there are people who put ground source heat pumps and say, well, you should, but mainly from the providers of that. So it's really hard to figure what technology, what things, what actions we should take in order for us to take that first step to become greener. So how would you advise we go about that?
Well, so ideally, the best thing is to get, an independent, energy survey or energy audit. And actually, the government funds those as well.
Oh, well, that's a good first step then, isn't it?
Yes, it is, absolutely. I worked on a number of these myself as a government contractor in North Lincolnshire. And it was really, really, really great and a lot of fun because businesses would have questions like, oh, is this a good idea? Should I do this? Should I, for example, improve my wall insulation? Should I, put in some loft insulation? What should I do, Ranya? And that is one question. But the other thing is, a lot of the times, people have done a fantastic job of trying to make their buildings as green as possible. But there are new technologies and new things coming up all the time. So I sometimes sit with them and I say, well, have you used this or have you done this or have you done that? Because I think it would really help you. It would be a very good fit for a business like you. One of the technologies that I've recommended is voltage optimization, and implemented and executed correctly. And when you're talking about greenwashing, sadly, that is one of the technologies that has had quite a more than its fair share of that. Poor thing. Poor thing. But businesses which are energy intensive by nature. Because, for example, a business that is industrial or has a large commercial kitchen will always be more energy intensive than, say, an office. It's just the way of the world.
Yeah, of course.
And so one thing, voltage optimization, for example, is a technology where the voltage coming in to the equipment, to the building, can be limited to 220 volts, because sometimes the voltage coming in is a bit higher than that.
Okay.
But it doesn't, in almost all cases, or in most, I'd say in most cases, we don't want to greenwash.
Yeah.
It's limiting the supply to 220 volts not only saves electricity, money, and reduces carbon emissions, but in most cases, it also helps protect the equipment itself. Yeah. It helps extend its life cycle. So there are a lot of benefits.
So in essence, voltage optimization is limiting the electricity you're pulling down or you're drawing down, you're using to suit what equipment or whatever it is that you have in your business. And because if we're taking in more than we need and we're paying for that, then that makes no business sense either, does it?
No, it's how the electricity is just supplied to us through the grid. It may be higher than 220 sometimes, but using voltage optimization equipment ensures that it's limited to that. And businesses see different savings. Some see 6% savings to sometimes up to 9 or 10% savings.
Well,
but it depends on the kind of the mix of equipment that you've got.
Well, Ranya, at even at 5%, the price of electricity nowadays, that's worth having, isn't it? If you take that through the year.
It is, but again, it's very individual, Mark, because for me, I typically recommend it for energy intensive businesses. So if it's a small business and their usage is, say, under, say, 20,000 kilowatt hours a year, in my experience, the payback isn't as good.
Okay.
But a very, very high energy user, like I recommended it, I won't name the name, but to a football stadium.
Okay.
I mean, these guys would be saving tens of thousands of pounds a year. And their payback would be pretty quick. So another one that is, that's a very new technology, and it's just started being used it's been used actually in some major department stores like Next. It's even been used by the NHS. Is using additives to your water heating systems. They're additives that basically change a property in water called surface tension. So it makes the water spread more evenly throughout, say, a radiator. And it basically helps the hot water come into contact with a larger area throughout the radiator.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really great.
I've never heard of that. It's incredible.
Because it's stuff that's new. This was a technology that I saw 2 years ago in Sibsy's Built to Perform Expo in London. And I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with it.
Of course.
Because it's so easy. I was just like, is this for real? Is this for real, guys?
Well, both of those things, both of those ideas, they seem obvious. When you explain them, you would look and think, well, of course we should do that for electricity. Of course we should do that for water. That makes so much sense. And if it's anything like the things like solar panels, because you mentioned the payback that you get from these, they seem to be coming down and down in every area of sustainability and measure. Is that right?
They are, absolutely. Solar panels are definitely coming down in cost, like with any other technology. And I think the main thing with solar panels is there are so many sources of funding out there for solar panels. for homes as well as businesses.
Yeah.
And it's great. I mean, they pay for themselves pretty quickly, and well, not pretty quickly, but they pay well. Let me rephrase that. The fact that there are so many funds available
Yeah.
to counter their costs means that their payback is a lot faster.
That's what we want to know. And I've seen the growth in domestic battery storage to go with solar panels, which makes them even more effective because you can draw down the energy when you need it the most from your battery. That's amazing,
Yeah.
those packages that come together.
Yeah, absolutely. And the use of batteries is really important and really great, because of course the thing with solar power is, of course, a lot of the time that solar power is generated doesn't necessarily coincide with when you need that electricity, and so batteries help offset that. They don't completely again, because we don't want to greenwash. No, we don't do that.
Yeah.
So they don't completely like transform the scenario to, oh yeah, you will use every single kilowatt hour you generate, but it definitely helps with that. The other thing I would add to that is this isn't a technology so much as a procurement strategy, but a lot of utility providers have different, purchasing schemes and rates now for buying the energy you don't use off you.
Okay.
And some of them offer buyback rates at tariffs as good as 21p per kilowatt hour.
Goodness.
That is very, very good.
That's very high.
So,
I mean, I've seen them go as low as 5p, I think, and 6p.
yeah. Well, it depends. It depends on the provider. It depends on the time of day that you export as well. But the other advice I would give to anyone putting solar panels in place is have a chat with your provider and make sure you've negotiated the best export rates that you can.
Okay. I mean, there's so much that you could. Well, it's interesting because there's so much you can do, and this is really. I mean, you're helping us just find a way through this jungle of things that you are doing, rather than just sitting thinking about it. So, if I get this right in summary, and tell me if this is okay. It feels like what the first thing that should happen is someone should do an audit of what your business actually needs. So you mentioned about government helping towards doing an audit of your business or doing a check of your business to tell you what things you need, and then get on and do it. I suppose get someone to advise you. Well, that's what my audit says. What should I do next? And then get on and do it, really.
And Mark, you asked a fantastic question about the resources that large businesses have available to them. Large businesses can literally afford to just throw money at this. They can, because it's how it is, and especially for large businesses who are good corporate citizens and strongly believe in sustainability. Yeah. They will make that investment because it's part of who they are. Yeah. For small businesses, it's a lot more challenging, but. What I'd say is avail of the government funding, because the government funding is there to eliminate those gaps.
Okay.
The government assistance is there to help small to medium businesses, act like a large business. Yeah. If this is what they choose to do.
Absolutely. So, that's what government funding should be. It's like they fill the gap that pick up on market failure where things aren't happening. So, if we need small businesses to take action, then that kind of support enables that to happen, doesn't it? So it makes Makes absolute sense that that's what we should be doing. And where do they go for that funding then? Who do they? Is it? Can you find it on just Googling it, or should they come to you, or what should happen?
Well, right. So I actually executed a government contract in North Lincolnshire, just focusing on that, providing energy advice. And it was a wonderful experience, actually, for me, because it was just wonderful working with all these businesses in my area. And the definition of small to medium is actually quite broad, Mark.
Yeah, it is,
Yeah. So it included massive, what to me were huge corporations. And it also included some very small companies. But they all had that in common.
Yeah.
They wanted to go green.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they wanted to save money.
So that is something that we all have got to buy into. It's not a choice about going green or not. We're all, as you said, really wisely at the beginning. Every vote counts. Everyone's got to get involved in this, and it shouldn't be the cost burden that everyone thinks it might be, because there is help out there to make that happen.
There is help out there, and there are. You should, as far as you can, get the best advice that you can, so you can make the right decisions for you.
Okay, and that's a great way to sum up that, because that is precisely what every business should be thinking, listening to this right now, regardless of what business you're in. So I'm going to ask you one last question now before we wrap up. You've been involved in this, as you said. I won't say the date again, but it was a short time ago. You've been involved in this a while. So if you had a vision about what the business community was doing, let's say in 20 years' time, what would you like to see happening in a place like this in northern Lincolnshire? What would small businesses be doing that make you think we're on the right track now to saving this planet?
In 20 years' time, I would ideally love to see every single business ideally just carbon neutral, really.
Okay.
And it's not as far off as you think, because actually, if the government carries out its plan for electrification and implements it right, in theory, all our electricity could just be coming from renewables anyway.
That's a big vision. And what's interesting to me on that is that the same advice that you're giving to small businesses, you're giving to government. Have a plan and then take action.
Oh, there you go.
Great way to end. Ranya, thank you so much. It's been really engaging and interesting. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for having me.